Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 4:30 p.m. session of the 2024 Open Seminar Community Conference. In this session, we are pleased to introduce the presentation, Multi-Stage Development of AI Non-Player Characters for Educational Purposes in an Undergraduate Curriculum. Dr. Scott Grant, our speaker, is also known as Kaylee West, who is on sabbatical and is unable to join us today, but created a video to share of their presentation. Dr. Grant lived, studied, and worked in China for 8 years. He has taught Chinese language and culture at tertiary level for more than 20 years. He coordinates and teaches 2 gateway units in the Monash University Chinese Studies program. He is the creator of the Monash Chinese Island virtual language learning simulation in Second Life and has been part of the formal introductory level curriculum at Monash since 2008. Please check out the website found at conference.opensimulator.org for speaker bios, details of the sessions, and the full schedule of events. The session is being live streamed and recorded. Welcome, everyone. Let's begin the video.
Thanks to all of you watching this presentation. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do the presentation live due to family commitments, but I hope this video will be sufficient. A major challenge for students learning a language other than English at a university in predominantly English-speaking countries is learning in a foreign language classroom environment. Unlike second language classrooms that are embedded in an environment in which the mainstream language is the language being learned and opportunities for situated learning and practice abound, such opportunities for the foreign language learner have traditionally been much more limited. Adding to the problem is the restricted nature of many conventional tertiary curriculum formats. The shape of this format is largely predetermined by the institution and leaves little flexibility in terms of course structure, number of contact hours, student-teacher ratios, forms of assessments, and so on. A typical structure might consist of a large group lecture, either live or recorded, followed up by small group tutorials, language labs, and maybe some regular online assignments and exercises and assessment via a learning management system. Assessment often takes the shape of regular quizzes, larger mid-sized tests, and end-of-semester high-stakes exams. It is important, but neither ideal nor sufficient for fostering multiliteracy, multicultural understanding, or foreign language learning. Contextualized situated learning has been shown to be an effective means of achieving pragmatic competence. Learning in authentic context facilitates the generation of meaningful language through the provision of rich and multimodal information and helps students connect new knowledge with existing knowledge. An ideal contextualized and situated learning environment is studying in a country where the language being learned is widely spoken. This also presents many challenges, including costs, time restrictions, family commitments, and so on, and especially this is the case since the appearance of COVID. One alternative is creating an interactive 3D virtual learning environment that can provide authentic learning context and associated tasks for situated learning. The Chinese Intensive Learning Program has run in Shanghai, Beijing, and Beijing for over 20 years. At its peak, there were over 400 students in Shanghai and Beijing for the 6-week duration. In an attempt to design lessons that provide opportunities for authentic communication within the confines of a foreign language classroom, an approach known as task-based language learning was adopted. Task-based language learning involves communication activities using language that is meaningful to the learner to carry out set tasks that have no purpose other than just the practice of language. That have a purpose other than just the practice of language, i.e., tasks that reflect real-life activities. Multi-user environments like Second Life provide a way to simulate immersive, realistic scenarios that require meaningful communication within the framework of a formal curriculum and the constraints of a foreign language classroom. Just a little bit of historical context. In 2008, the Monash Chinese Studies program commenced task-based language lessons in the Second Life virtual region called Monash University Chinese Island. To date, over 2,000 students from Monash and other institutions have done the lessons on the island and interacted with our virtual characters. One thing I haven't mentioned so far is the number of students involved. In the first year undergraduate cohort doing Chinese at Monash, in first semester there are up to 130 students in most years. In second semester there are up to 90 students. The above numbers dropped off during the pandemic and haven't really returned to pre-pandemic numbers. However, this presents a problem for lesson design and interactivity on Chinese Island. Students mainly interact with non-player characters or NPCs. NPCs can interact with multiple students simultaneously without getting tired or confused. This also frees up the teacher to interact with students individually as problems or questions arise. In this case, the teacher plays the role of a facilitator. I'd just like to talk briefly about the difference between non-player characters and chatbots. Non-player characters are not simply chatbots. They perform a number of important roles that help to make the interactions more authentic. For example, providing linguistic interaction, providing feedback and negotiation of meaning in the form of recast, clarification requests, repetition, confirmation, comprehension checks, and so on. They also perform tasks such as accepting payment and handing over goods, and they act as gatekeepers for the different stages of the tasks that are set. In addition to being able to conduct conversational interaction with learners, NPCs perform specific roles. For example, a waitress, a train ticket seller, a doctor in a hospital, within the specific learning scenario. They need to give the impression of being another person within the training scenario. Now I would like to talk about the 3.2 stages of development that we went through with the Chinese Island NPCs. Stage 1 of NPC development from 2009 to 2014. The system initially developed in 2009 was twofold. The first part involved having a number of Second Life accounts running on external servers that kept the NPCs associated with each account in the virtual environment 24/7. In addition, a customized version of AIML, or Artificial Intelligent Markup Language, was developed to enable the NPCs to converse in Chinese text with students. At the same time, a platform called Pandora Bots was being used as the chat engine for a wide range of chatbots, as it provided a range of tools with which to conveniently set up and run AIML. However, Chinese language was not available at the time, and hence we had a customized version developed. Each of these elements ran on servers external to SL, which often caused problems with reliability, where, for example, maintenance schedules did not coincide. While the above setup worked well to a certain extent, a range of issues existed that made it less than ideal. AIML is based on pattern matching of keywords or phrases in user input, which then trigger preset responses. While AIML provided a degree of flexibility with the use of wildcards that could represent any input and topics that could guide the conversation in particular directions, if a learner input did not contain any or only some of the keywords to be matched, or if the input was grammatically or syntactically incorrect, the system would fall back on generalized responses that could sometimes end up being circular. On many occasions, learners would ask an NPC a question or make a statement using language that was correct but more advanced than what had been programmed into the chat database. This resulted in them receiving a message of non-comprehension from the non-player character. A major problem with pattern matching AI is the need to anticipate what content will be sent to the chat engine so that it can respond in a useful and meaningful manner. While task-based learning can facilitate setting limits around what language and vocabulary can be used by students, it cannot fully prevent learners from using correct language that is more advanced than what is being taught. Ideally, any such correct language input should be added to the NPC database as soon as possible, but for a range of reasons, this was extremely difficult at the time. It was also challenging to add any new content to the chat database or any new task-based activities designed. At the same time, there was also no way to give the NPCs a voice. That is, there was no real-time text-to-speech that could be implemented, thus limiting opportunities for students to practice listening skills and hear modeled pronunciation. So I would now like to show you a brief film of interaction with one of the NPCs during stage 1. I'd now like to move on to stage 2 of the NPC development from 2014 to 2023. In 2013, a successful application was made to the Australian federal government for a seed grant of Australian dollars 50,000 with the aim to completely overhaul the NPCs and chat engine. A major goal was to have everything running on Second Life servers to obviate problems resulting from relying on external servers to run both the NPCs and the associated chat engines. NPCs made from linked mesh objects were designed and developed to replace the original NPCs that ran off individual Second Life avatar accounts. The advantage of these new NPCs is that they were part of the larger virtual environment running on Second Life servers and thus not subject to going offline randomly unless the SL servers went offline. One major disadvantage of these new NPCs was that they were particularly hard to animate, as each of the individual linked mesh needed to be manually manipulated into place, with each of their positions being hard-coded into an animation script that was then activated and would move the body parts through a range of motions. In 2014, the NPC chat engines were fully upgraded to using LSL scripting language. As with AIML, these chat engines relied on matching keywords from student input during a conversation, which then triggered a set response and the equivalent audio. A significant advantage of this approach was the ability to engage in agile development. On many occasions, when during a lesson, it was found that a student had used a correct phrase or sentence in Chinese to communicate with an NPC that the NPC didn't understand, the relevant chat engine script could be modified to add the expression and appropriate response on the run while the lesson was still going. As a part of an action research approach to lessons, student interaction with the environment and the NPCs was constantly monitored during classes to capture any problems that occurred, so that the problems could either be rectified during class or immediately after class concluded. This was an ongoing, iterative process that greatly aided the optimization of the virtual environment and the NPC chat engines over a long period of time. It also enabled new content to be added to lessons, the virtual environment, and the chat engines conveniently and efficiently. Another big advantage of using linked mesh prims was that the NPCs and the Linden scripting language coded chat engines could all be used in OpenSim and also on the Sim on a Stick standalone version of OpenSim. Another big advantage of this approach was the ability to create pre-recorded audio files of all of the NPC responses and upload them in advance to the Second Life platform. Once uploaded, each respective audio file could be triggered simultaneously by the text-based Chinese characters output from the NPCs, thus giving the NPCs a voice. From the student perspective, this provided exemplar pronunciation for them to practice and adjust their own pronunciation. However, the need to upload the audio files did slow down this updating process at times. I'd like to now show you just a brief video on text-based interaction with the NPCs from stage 2. So in our regular lesson, students interacted conversationally with the NPCs in text-based Chinese character chat. As you can see in this case, the nurse NPC replies in both text and audio. Further, the nurse can also activate other functions, for example, payment for registration and a medical history card as part of the conversation.
您好，好，先在这里挂号，填一下病历卡，然后就可以去看医生。好的，请付1块钱。谢谢，给你病历卡，请填好再去看医生。
I'd now like to move on and talk about stage 3 of the NPC development, which occurred from 2022-23 to 2024. In 2022-23, the non-player characters were upgraded to Animesh. Animesh characters, as you probably all know, have rigging, a skeletal structure, similar to user avatars, which enables them to be animated in a similar way to user avatars. This involves pre-recorded animations of a range of movements and expressions that can be embedded in the Animesh character as a file. The new Animesh NPCs can be animated during a conversation with a student by simply triggering the embedded animation file using keywords, for example, talk, stand, and so on, coded into the chat engine script. Now I want to talk about stage 3.1. Stage 3 was divided into 2 parts, and so this is, we'll talk about stage 3.1. And in this stage, ChatGPT was added to the existing setup with the NPCs to provide corrective feedback. So one of the issues raised by students quite frequently was the inflexibility of the NPCs in terms of understanding their input. Due to limitations of the keyword set response approach, often minor mistakes in terms of incorrect Chinese characters or word order or grammatical structure in the student input to the NPCs would lead to students receiving the set response, 对不起，我没听懂，请你再说一遍, which is, sorry, I didn't understand, could you please say it again? Sometimes even correct student input would trigger this response due to using a more advanced form of expression that had not been anticipated or coded into the chat-based engine. So this raises an interesting question. Part of the reason to have students interact conversationally with the NPCs is to reinforce sentence structure, grammar, and vocabulary found in the textbook in a more realistic, spontaneous context. The interaction with the NPCs has always been intended to be both a consolidation of what is being learned in the main textbook or at the main part of the course, as well as an opportunity to develop the ability to use this textbook-based knowledge in a simulation of a real-life conversation. If the chat engine is too flexible and no guidance is given by the NPC on how to correct mistakes, students get frustrated. That's if the chat engine is too inflexible. On the other hand, if the chat engine is made too flexible, even potentially totally incorrect input could trigger a task-related response from the NPC and the chat engine, with the student being totally unaware that their input was problematic. With this in mind, a separate ChatGPT HUD was added to the mix to monitor student input to the NPCs. Specifically, in this lesson, ChatGPT is asked to explain any grammar, syntax, vocabulary, or context mistakes in the context of a medical scenario. In many cases, the problem with student input is one or more Chinese characters input incorrectly. Mandarin Chinese has many homonyms or homographs. For example, that means characters that have the same spelling, pinyin spelling, and pinyin spelling uses English alphabet to spell out the pronunciation of the character, but the characters are written differently and usually have a different meaning. If a student is not paying attention, they can easily type in the correct pinyin spelling, but then select an incorrect homograph. This kind of error is easily detected and explained by ChatGPT. For example, the student might want to say or to type the Chinese characters for, I want to pay the medication fee, which should be, 我要交纳药费. However, if they are not paying attention, they could end up inputting, 我要交纳药费. Pronunciation is different between those two. The second one is fee, or the word fee, medical fee, is incorrect, although the spelling in the Chinese pinyin is the same as the correct characters. ChatGPT then, in this particular example, would respond to the student with the following feedback. The student said, 我可以在这儿交纳药费吗? This means, can I pay for the medication here? The mistake is that the student used the wrong word for fee, which should be fee, to refer to the cost of medication in a medical setting. So that was the feedback that the students got from, that the student in this case got from ChatGPT, pointing out the error and correcting it. I'd now like to show you a short video of the stage 3.1 of NPC development, where a student, in this case me, is chatting with the Chinese island real estate agent, and the real estate agent corrects one or two errors that were made during the conversation.
您好。对不起，我没听懂，请你再说一遍。
尊敬的各位旅客，我们已经到上海浦东国际机场，现在是北京时。
Stage 3.2 of NPC development, the full integration of ChatGPT as the chat engine. While clearly receiving instructive or explicative feedback from ChatGPT as a separate function of the conversational interaction with the Chinese island NPCs during lessons was welcomed by students, to some degree, the authenticity of the interactions was compromised. ChatGPT was present in the interactions as a separate entity, something that would not be available in real-life authentic interactions. Past research done by this presenter shows that the degree of authenticity of the interactions with the Chinese island NPCs has a direct impact on foreign language anxiety experienced by students. Foreign language anxiety, or FLA, has also been shown to have negative impacts on learner performance, while conversely, reducing FLA has benefits for overall learner performance. While the flexibility of generative AI like ChatGPT, providing the chat engine for the NPCs, has a range of benefits, it simultaneously created a significant technical challenge. Because the NPC ChatGPT responses are generated on the run, that is, they're not preset as in a pattern matching system, it is very challenging to trigger pre-recorded matching audio. This means responses from the NPCs and ChatGPT can vary slightly in the wording or the word order each time an input is received from a learner. The answer to this challenge is using real-time TTS, text-to-speech, that is triggered each time an NPC or ChatGPT produces a text-based response to a learner communicative interaction. Second Life does not have inbuilt TTS functionality, and so an external solution is required. Text responses from ChatGPT are sent into Second Life by an HTTP response function in the form of a JSON object. Once the text response has been extracted from the JSON object, it can then be sent out via HTTP request to an external online TTS service, which converts the text into audio and plays it on a web page. Starting from the first semester in 2024, ChatGPT was fully integrated into the NPCs as the chat engine that enabled them to communicatively interact with students. Unlike the previous AIML and LSL chat engines custom designed for the Chinese island lessons, which relied on pattern matching of keywords and set responses, and thus suffered from inflexibility in handling imperfect learner input, with the guidance of an appropriate prompt, ChatGPT is able to handle a relatively wide range of imperfect learner input and provide appropriate output. Moreover, this all happens in the background and is invisible to the learner, whereas in the previous stage, the feedback from ChatGPT was explicit and highly visible. To some degree, this flexibility simulates the kind of flexibility a human native speaker would have in interpreting, understanding, and responding to imperfect learner input. In this respect, full integration of ChatGPT into the NPCs has restored a degree of authenticity into communicative interaction with learners. I'd now like to play another short video clip which will show you NPC which has now got ChatGPT and voice fully integrated.
14块钱一盘。
你家有什么人？
我家有妈妈、爸爸、姐姐、弟弟，我先生和孩子。
I'd like to finish my presentation with a final anecdote, if I may. As part of a post-lesson survey on how the lesson went, in response to the question, how did you feel about the ChatGPT functionality that has been added to the virtual characters, one student answered, it adds some good dimension where they will still understand you if you mention the wrong thing, like a human would. I did accidentally get stuck talking with the doctor last lesson because I thought it would be funny to tell her that I have schizophrenia. It was not, and she wouldn't give me the things I needed for the lesson and kept telling me to see a psychiatrist because schizophrenia is serious. This, however, was completely self-inflicted. Thank you so much for watching my presentation. If you have any questions about this presentation or the Chinese Island NPCs, please feel free to contact me at the email address below, which is scott.grant@monash.edu. Okay, thank you very much.
Grant for an informative and interesting video. As a reminder to our audience, you will want to check out conference.opensimulator.org to see what is coming up on the conference schedule. You won't want to miss our 6 o'clock event in the OSCC music region, which is entitled Live Music with VO Voom, followed by at 7 o'clock, live music with acoustic energy, better known as James Olmos. And from 8 to 9 o'clock, our very own DJ Sun Tzu hosts steampunk music and his creations. Also, we encourage you to visit the OSCC24 Poster Expo in the OSCC Expo 3 region to find accompanying information on presentations and to explore the hypergrid resources in OSCC Expo 2 region, along with the sponsor and crowdfunder booths located throughout all of the OSCC Expo regions. Thank you again to our speakers and to the audience, and we will see you tomorrow for our second day of OSCC presentations.